Welcome to Let's Talk, Episode 3. As promised earlier, this top particular chapter will go three parts. The first chapter discusses about how and why India have to make wonderful relations with Russia, and Russia is considered the best comrade of India, not only today, even in the past. So today's chapter, I begin with India and Russia could do magic. It's time to say goodbye to the USA and even the Chinese products. So tonight we have some firm and decisive chapter of discussion. There will be three series of episodes on this issue I'm to discuss now. This is chapter 1 of the 3. Let me remind the US and UK are the Western Europe and what we are. Let me take you back in time 250 years ago. A land of amazing wealth, medicine, original scripts, and a huge nation both geographically and demographically. We accepted everyone who entered our country with welfare or kind intent. However, the British entered India with their cruel intent to oppress the Indian diaspora, and they succeeded in that. The United Kingdom can be addressed as United Thieves, pardon me. They ruptured the Indian society, societal norms, unity, knowledge, culture, agriculture, art, and even burgled the whole nation's wealth. Can we forgive such a nation? Should we make such a nation our friend? This is the absolute truth behind the United Kingdom, or we call the British. Well, on the other hand, Indians were traditionally religious, though I'm not a religious person, who considered the earth their mother, the mud on their farm was touched and bowed before plowing. They considered their hard toil would be responded with sufficient crops, food that was respected as a gift of God. It's a great perception anyway. Food is indeed the gift of nature, and the nature is the mother God. But the ruthless British went on ravaging the innocence of the largely poor but healthy section of the society. They went on making people of this vast nation slaves, and the rich ones their sidekicks. There were many rich Indians who supported the oppressive thieves of the West, though they were not Indian friends. They cannot be Indian friends. The patriots of India, from rich to poor, were not willing to brace the British elementary lessons of organized slavery. We did not pick up the weapon to protect them, but we questioned, we argued, we even requested them to leave our land. But the thugs of the West assaulted the dignity of the nation. Indians were forced to take up the weapon under the strong leadership of valored great son of the soil, Bhagat Singh, the prowess of Subhash Chandra Bose, and millions of our farmers. The dictators were extremely oppressive and cruel to our great-grandparents. We Indians will not forgive them. I think we shouldn't forgive them. Indians were ruined under slavery in the past, and even today we are seeing the same effect. Today, a little different place, but almost the same attitude, same habit, and same problem we are facing from. The he-man of business, a nation that dictates terms to other nations. I do not have to tell what is the nation. The nation is USA. It has gained this hashtag supercop. Everything is business in this nation. Either it is relations, students, education, intelligence, religion, color of the people, women, men, or even the character of a person. Everything is sold and purchased here. The country has splurged all the extent possible for the world's complete disaster anytime. It calls India the third world nation. Do you feel are we third world nation dictated the terms epithet given by USA? But the nation forgets the business, outsourcing, and the number of MNCs operating in the Indian subcontinent. There are hundreds of MNCs of American origin strategically swallowing the Indian market. If the UK had made India slave, today USA is making India their economic slave. We have to emerge as a challenge to it. This is the time. We need a restructuring of our economy. Economy for India first and others next. As a result of the invasion of the West, India still could not overcome fully from the hold of the octopuses. There are very good reasons for that. Americans have protocols of everything. They have protocols for dealing with the top citizens of the country. They have protocols for talking to a country. They have protocol to abuse any nation or any person, any chief of the nation. Do we have a protocol like that? I would say it is called manners of the country that has been brought up. Why can't India have our own protocols? I'll take a little example here. How do you feel it? Why can't India have our own protocols? I repeat, Indian presidents and the prime ministers were frisked by the American cops, and our premiers cooperated with them. It isn't a protocol to frisk the president of a nation. If it's a protocol, India should change its protocol towards American presidents while entering the Indian territory. I firmly tell on behalf of my complete nation, the largest democracy on earth, United States of India. We should frisk their first citizens too. This nation cannot be an Indian friend, rather cunning and stylish diplomatic friend. It's more dangerous than an open enemy. A nation that till today talks about white, black, pink, yellow, brown skin color of people and behave accordingly cannot be any nation's true friend. The United States of America, I will call this thing United States of America, can be a friend of any nation that obeys and be allegiant to it. The USA had little wisdom during the First and Second World War, and they kept making alliances to crush their invincible opponents through war strategies, very mean war strategies. But they resorted to nuke weapons to wrest the powerful Japan. The world was unaware of such an unprecedented catastrophe. The devastation caused by the USA in Nagasaki and Hiroshima cannot be ever forgotten or forgiven by any nation or any society. Americans considered that Japanese were defeated violently, but that was not the truth. The Japanese decided to restructure their country with the valor, hard work, and harmony that Americans can never think of. This is American intelligence. If it were intelligence, then every druggie is brilliant. Every terrorist is brilliant. What was the purpose of Vietnam War? What did USA achieve through that? America realized one thing through Vietnam War, that next time the US cannot battle with the Vietnamese. The long bloody battle was the befitting example for their unbearable arrogance. Fortunately, the little nation Vietnam fought like warriors, but the US fought like barbarians. Why the US declared war against Iraq? You have to go back to 1990s. The Kuwait sought the American help when the former tried to capture the Kuwait city in 1990s. I mean, the Iraqis tried to capture almost, they kept for 6 months. Though the American troops could bring back Kuwait in its previous format in almost very less time, but it did not ease the greed for Iraqi soil, for the oil. It kept haunting the Iraq and the dictator of the country, Saddam Hussein. And he was defiant to accept the US sanctions and the terms dictated to his country. I will not support Saddam Hussein for his political greed at all. However, the US had no moral right to disturb the whole nation, and eventually Saddam was caught by the US soldiers, executed publicly, The American declared war against Iraq on the rumor that Iraq had biological or chemical weapon, that there was no such discovery made in the extensive and condemnable military combat conducted by the US force. The then UN had warned the US to choose war against Iraq on the ground of no substance. But the parties did not pay any heed to the UN even. The United Nations, I think it was Kofi Annan was General Secretary at that time. American President could not respect that too. Well, there is again many reasons. I do not think the United Nations could behave independently as long as USA supports or carries out orders. The infamous heed of the USA, that is quite different from what people used to think. It was helping USA. It was helping its own country. It was making its own position stronger unethically towards all the nations. But what happened after that? Saddam Hussein was publicly hanged, and it was live telecast by the US media. It was a condemnable act. A civilized society cannot function in such a manner. You cannot be this much ruthless or uncivilized. And this is, again, I would call the word, I repeat the word, the brilliance and the culture of the United States of America. The insult single-handedly offered by the US was unfathomable by the Iraqis till today. Saddam, on the other hand, predicted the future of Iraq, something like this. When he was interrogated by the CIA chief, I hope it was George Paro, if I'm wrong, pardon me, but it was the CIA chief interrogated him. And during the interrogation, all the questions, the president of Iraq, Saddam Hussein, replied. Somehow, it is precise. The summary was almost like this. He said, "You Americans do not know the language and the mind of Arabians, the Arabs. Their mind, only my way can," means Saddam said his way, "only my way means the dictatorship can be working model for the Iraqis. Otherwise, civil war will be spread, rampage will start every corner. You will kill me today, but you will see the result after 15 years. This was almost a statement, this was summary. I do not go to the extensive reply of Saddam Hussein, but this was the result. This was almost a summary of what he spoken before his death. His words were not the words of a scared wet pup, but he showed the resilience of an audacious leader. He might have been bad, but not afraid. The ISIS of the 21st century is the wholesome outcome of Saddam's execution. Who created ISIS? I would like to ask every citizen of the United States of USA. Even the President of USA, I would like to ask, who created ISIS? ISIS is the crisis created by the US. I do not crib again to say it was the US that has paved the way to such a brutal outfit by the Islamic fanatics. No one can such brutality by IS even. Nobody could support even Saddam Hussein. But Saddam Hussein was not creating any trouble to US. But the US greed could not stop its territorial greed to poach, to encroach, to infiltrate outside to other countries in search of wealth in the form of oil. The atrocities of the US never seemed to end at that point too. The US employed the then most sought after Al Qaeda chief Osama bin Laden, craftily prior to his becoming the outfit chief. In Balochistan, he was employed by the US, and it is not a secret. But the manipulative connivance of the US is nothing new to the world. The man Osama, who hemmed the destructive terrorist outfit Al Qaeda, had American contribution for his becoming so. I think this is truth. However, his WTC bombing was the outrage of an evil, should be condemned outrightly. But my question is, who has created this WTC bombing, this particular dark hour of USA? The country itself, the parties, the administrators of this country, United States of America, they created. What is the outcome of the Afghan war declared by the US? It has destroyed many portions of the nation. One time American friend Iran also understood lately, though, what is the intention of the US government. Hence, the country decided to manufacture new defense system for its external possible futuristic threat. But the US government once again proved to be problem creator rather than solution maker. It dictated Iran for possible retaliation if they perceived the nuclear station in Iran. Iran has not succumbed yet, but the pivotal question arises: who has first misused the nuclear bomb, who repeated the terrifying error? All questions go to, and all the answers go to parties. During the World War II, there were barely 4 or 5 nations had nuclear weapons, that too in nominal numbers. But today, I believe there are nothing less than 30 plus nations have nuclear weapons. This data could be questionable, though. The threat of nuclear warhead is spearheading because of the open threat created by the US alone. The US put enormous duress in the past for the CTBT, fully scripted by the parties, and dictated terms to India. Who is America to dictate its terms to India? You have no moral right, you have no civil right, you have no administrative right, you have no international right to us to dictate. We are not your part. We are not your state, we are not a country. You cannot interfere in India's internal affairs, India's dignity, or India's national desire. The nation had issued many trade threats, visa restrictions, and many more in the similar effect. Even the recent case when Donald Trump asked for hydroxychloroquine, basically an anti-malarial drug which is not meant for COVID-19, nevertheless, Trump insisted India to send it as early as possible. On the rejection of the proposal of the US, the parties has warned India of a retaliatory action. India somehow subsumed the Trump's threat as it is not the time to drag the issue. Donald Trump, we have not succumbed your stupid threat to us. Look at the war on IS in Mosul. The area is fully destroyed, devastated in the most savaging act by 2 strange teams of hell, the IS psychos and the combined force led by the US. We have to see the result. What is left in Mosul? Destroyed homes, completely desolate district. It looks like ghost in the sand. Is the US a war promoter or is a war solver? I would choose the former. It's a war promoter, world's largest sponsor of all the wars. A major portion of the US GDP derived from the global arms sale. These arms are not sold for peekaboo, but for the war criminals around the world. How does a terrorist get American-made artillery? The terrorists acquire those from the US mafia. It is estimated to be 27% of the US GDP emerges from such sale alone. One nation has spread hatred and disharmony to the human world on earth, and it could lead to the WW3 within 20 years. This is the greatest achievement of USA. This nation is a land of paradoxes. It is the nation of the world's most dreaded mafia. It is the nation of the world's most corrupt businessmen. It's the land of the worst education, but the Indians are yet to understand this. Why does it happen will be explained in my fourth episode. The nation promotes the maximum number of applications on cell phones. It's a nation that promotes the world's most and the worst soft drinks, canned food, and a country with the maximum broken families. Why do Indians prefer to run into such a nation? Why to make India weaker? And you should think how to make India a much stronger nation, and we can. Why to strengthen Indian rupee, and how to strengthen Indian rupee against the dollar, because it is ruling this country. All these and many more will be heard in my fourth episode. In the last episode of this series, you'll hear why Russia is the perfect friend for India's harmonious growth. Do not miss it. In this episode, I could not explain all because the whole issue, the whole thing, because it has limited time. And we have made it 3 episodes. And the next episode, you'll find what is India, how India can prosper in the next 15 or 20 years as the most powerful, not to destroy the world, in its own way, powerful territory in this world. But I want India to be the topmost nation in this world, but the most dignified, and we can and we will. If you keep what I'm going to tell you. Till then, keep watching Rex Talk, and please subscribe it, promote it. Good night. Thank you.